welcome to Cupcake Addiction's Superman Man of Steel cake pops, where I'll be showing you how to make these gorgeous little Superman cake pops, perfect for the superhero in your family. Tools and equipment that we will be using today: I'm resting my pops in a polystyrene block. I have 2 Ziploc bags, a pair of scissors, I have a couple of Lollypop sticks, I've got a pre-rolled cake pop ball. Now, if you don't have a great recipe for getting your cake pop mixed to this consistency, I will leave a link to our recipe and tutorial in the description box below. I have 3 different colours of either chocolate or candy melt, so I'm using blue, red and yellow. I have a couple of just sour straps. You can also use roll-up or fondant for this tutorial, 3 teaspoons and a knife. I also have my Superman printables. Now, I will leave a link to these in the description box below, and they've got a little bit of baking paper or grease-proof wax paper, and I've just sticky taped that on to secure it. That's going to be the templates for our little logos. Let's get started. The first thing that we want to do is pipe around the edges of our logos. So we're going to start with the red, and I'm just going to take one of my Ziploc bags, one of my spoons, and just spoon a little bit of that red melted candy melt into my Ziploc bag. Squeeze it down to the edge of the corner. Make sure that you do it up so that you don't end up with any blobs or anything coming out the top. Alright, now what you want to do here, and I'm going to turn it around to face me, this is probably the fiddliest part, but it's actually not that hard. So what I've done with those Superman templates is I've actually inverted them, so they're backwards, and when we take them out of the fridge and flip them, your Superman logo is going to be facing the right direction. So take your Ziploc bag and your pair of scissors and just snip off a very tiny little corner. So you just want to fashion just a really nice fine piping bag. And I found it easiest to go around the outside of the Superman diamond before doing the S. So just take your piping bag and just applying a nice amount of pressure there. Just pipe around the edges. Now, don't worry if your edges are not perfect. Once these come out of the fridge, you can use your fingers just to neaten them up a little bit. So I'm just going to go right around the edges. We're going to trace all of the red in our Superman templates. Alright, so I've just done the top row of 4 there, and I will mention with these, make sure you do a few more than you think you're going to need, because there will be a little bit of wastage. There might be 1 or 2 there that you're not happy with. One might break as you try to pull it off the sheet. So I'm going to take my yellow now. Now, this first one here is starting to set, but it's not completely set yet, and that's fantastic. You want them to sort of be just a little bit starting to firm up, but definitely not completely firm. Take your other Ziploc bag, a couple of spoons of that melted yellow chocolate or candy melt. And we're just going to fill in those little gaps. So once again, squeezing all the way down to the end of the bag and zipping the bag up. If you love this tutorial, make sure that you head on over to our channel, My Cupcake Addiction, and hit the subscribe button. We've got heaps of great tutorials over there that you might like to have a look at. I'm just going to cut another tiny little corner. So we've got another little yellow piping bag. And we're just going to fill in the little gaps. Now, don't worry if it's not particularly neat on this side. This is going to be the back. So we've got the front. The reason that we've flipped that logo for you is so that your front will be lovely and neat. So just squeeze in your candy melt in about the right spot. Alright, so you should have your little logos looking like that, and they are going to go into the fridge. Before I pop them in so we can stick it all in the fridge together, let's prepare our cake pop ball. So this is my cake pop ball, and I'm just going to, obviously it's its lovely ball shape, I'm just going to flatten it down between my hands. So you just want to flatten it down so that it's sort of a bit of a disc, and if you want to just fashion it into a little bit of a chesty type shape, don't worry too much because we are going to cut those sides off to make it nice and defined, but you just want something like this. I'm going to pop that one into the refrigerator for 5 minutes, as well as my little templates. They're going to go into the fridge for 5 minutes as well, and when we come back they'll be all ready to go and we can get dipping and decorating. Alright, from the fridge and my cake pop ball is now nice and firm. And your little Superman logos, now look, they're just falling off the baking paper for me, but if they're not for you, you can just get your knife underneath them very gently and flick them over. I haven't even looked at these yet, so I hope they've all turned out. Beautiful. Now I've got this one here, look, it is a little bit wobbly. If you get some like that, just use your fingers and just very, very gently, because these are pretty fragile, but just rub along the sides of them, or you can take one of these knives and just scrape it up the side just to neaten off those edges a little bit, or you can discard it and use one of the other ones that you think looks a little bit better. So now we want to take the lollipop stick and our knife. We're going to just trim off that cake pop ball so that it's the right shape. So we're going to sort of make it look, you can leave it round if you want, but we're going to make it look a little bit like Superman's torso here. So I'm just going to take the very smallest amount off either side, and you want to make sure that you can still fit your Superman logo on there. So with chocolate, that's going to be about perfect, because the chocolate's going to give us a little bit more size. So we want to take your lollipop stick and dip it in that melted blue candy melt or chocolate and just insert it in. You want to insert it a little bit further than we normally would, because it's a bit longer, this cake pop, being a torso size. Mine's come up to about there. And just, if you've got any little bits of extra along the bottom, just sort of wipe it off. You still want that nice chocolate seal, but you don't want it to be too thick and chunky, because we don't want it to change the shape of our Superman. Now while that's setting, that lovely chocolate seal, we're going to make our Superman cape. So you want to take one of your sour straps or your roll-up or fondant, whatever you're using, about this size. I'm just going to fold it over once. I've sort of folded it on a bit of an angle, so rather than just in half, we're just folding it over to about there. We're just going to take your scissors and just cut out some little nicks. If you've got an apprentice in the kitchen today, there's lots of little offcuts there for them to taste. So you should have something that looks like this, just a bit of a rippled bottom of the cape. And then taking your scissors and still holding those two sections together, you just want to cut out sort of a bit of a neck hole. So I'm just going to cut around a bit of a semicircle. Cut that one out, and you should have your little cape. Now I like to take just a little bit of either the red candy melt or the yellow. The blue you can use, but it's a little bit dark for inside the red sour strap. Just pop a little tiny blob of it there and use it just to fasten those two together. That's going to hold that nice and tight for us. Now I'm pretty happy that my candy melt should be set there. I'm going to choose my best logo, so I quite like this one here. And we're going to dip the candy melt. I'm going to give that chocolate just a good stir right before I dip it. And I will also mention, with my candy melts and chocolates, I always add a little bit of kofa, otherwise known as Crisco or vegetable shortening. It's a solidified vegetable oil, and I don't use straight vegetable oil, I use the kofa because it does solidify back. So straight vegetable oil is a little bit too runny, but I use about 20 grams per 300 grams of chocolate, or 20 grams per 100 grams of candy melt, because the candy melts are quite a bit thicker. So you want to take your Superman torso and we're just going to dip it in. You'll notice I'm using quite a nice deep cup. Bring him out of the chocolate and we're just going to tap off any excess. Make sure you're turning as you're tapping. Alright, so I've got my Superman torso and I'm just going to use my finger and just clean off the top of that stick so that we've got a really nice neat finish. Pick your best side of your cake pop, so I think this one will be it for me. And you just want to lift up your little Superman logo and sit it on top while that's still nice and wet. So you can, if you misposition it at all, you can slide it around ever so slightly. Pop it in there to the candy melt. Now I'm going to let this just sit for 5 or 10 seconds. I don't want it to be dry, but I don't want it to be super wet before I add this cake. So just letting it sit here for not too long. Sort of happy that's probably about where I want it. So it is starting to set, but it's not completely set yet. And now I'm just going to take the cape and I want to position it on the top. Right there. I'm just going to hold that with my fingers for another 5 or 10 seconds and that's going to be completely set. So there you have your absolutely gorgeous little Superman cake pops, complete with cape and logo. I think you'll agree they're an absolutely fantastic little Man of Steel Superman cake pop, and the little superhero in your life is going to absolutely love these. As always, thanks very much for watching.